Oklahoma Senator James Lankford is pushing a bill to get oil and gas drillers relief from the corporate alternative minimum tax that was imposed by the Inflation Reduction Act. Senator Lankford joins us this morning. He is the vice chair of the Republican Policy Committee. He's also part of the majority whip team. And Senator, first of all, thank you for being here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this bill?
Yeah, the corporate alternative minimum tax caught a lot of different entities on it. And really, it was focused primarily on the energy side was the initial target coming out of the Inflation Reduction Act. If we can't get rid of that entirely, we at least need to give some relief to those folks that are those independent producers. We're not talking about the mega companies, but a lot of independents, because as folks know, if you actually grow to a level that you actually get caught with the CAMT, you're stuck in it at that point. So we need to be able to get some relief to them so they're not constantly worried about it. The last thing we want to do to a business is say, you can't keep growing. You've got to be able to cap your growth. That's not good for our economy, and it's not good for our energy future.
Yeah, I understand the idea of wanting companies to be able to consider intangible drilling costs as a way of really promoting drilling, doing what the president has talked about. But do you think this flies as a separate bill, or shouldn't this get wrapped up in the one big, beautiful bill that's going to do everything from, figure out the taxes to figure out where we're doing with tariffs and other issues along the way? Why do this as a one-off?
We're dropping it to be able to put it out there and to say, let's talk about this as one beautiful amendment and one big, beautiful bill. So the focus is, how do we actually get this out there, get it into the conversation and make everyone aware of it, to say we're not just talking about the 2017 tax bill and moving that forward. We're also talking about some other areas as well, including some things that were done in the IRA that really hurts our economy. Quite frankly, the intangible drilling cost really incentivizes companies to drill the next well, to make sure we're doing more domestic production. And it's a basic expense that every single business has. So right now we're treating energy production differently than we're treating other manufacturing. This just levels the playing field for them.
OK, this is interesting, though. Is this what we're going to see? A lot of bills that are put out for discussion to really elevate the issue, make sure that people understand it, the public, the other senators, the House potentially on these issues. Is this what we're going to be looking at for the next several months? Everybody trying to say, look at this very carefully, because we're talking about one big, beautiful bill, but it's going to have a lot of moving pieces. And I would guess that the negotiation began 3 days ago and will continue until that bill gets put forward.
Actually, the negotiation began about 9 months ago when the Finance Ways and Means Committee, we sat down privately and said, OK, let's say all the different, for instance, here. One of those was, what if we win the House, the Senate, and the White House, and we have an opportunity for reconciliation? So we started gaming that out to be able to determine what could be done, what should be done. So we've got all the things on the whiteboard on it, but we've actually got to get the language right in each individual segment. So you don't write the whole bill all at once. You write the different pieces, do the technical work that's on that, and then be able to say, let's get this piece into the whole.
That sounds like a protracted and kind of messy process. What are the odds that these things each get picked up? And even if this gets voted on, what are the odds it winds up in the final? I mean, there's so many stories we hear about the back and forth, the negotiations, the deal making. Let's just take salt, for instance. You have the New York and New Jersey Republicans who have said that they would vote against it in the House if they can't get the salt deductions lifted to 20,000 or maybe more. How does this all work out? As somebody who's on the policy committee, as somebody who sees everything that's taking place, describe the process.
It's a big, messy process on that. So I serve on the Finance Committee, which is that tax writing committee in the Senate. So we'll take different pieces. Let me take not just the intangible drilling costs, but let's take bonus depreciation. Bonus depreciation, the 2017 tax bill, was diminishing each year. Well, we've got to get a stable, higher bonus depreciation up there to be able to incentivize, again, businesses to be able to compete with China and to be able to do more manufacturing, more energy production, more semiconductors, all the things that we need to be able to do here. But that allows those businesses to be able to write off that deduction faster. That doesn't change the amount of income coming into the Treasury. It incentivizes business activity and for them to be able to write it off right now rather than in the future. That's a way that we can actually impact the economy. That's one slice of that I'm working on among many. So we work it out in our committee. We work it out with the House members. I met with some of the House members on Ways and Means earlier this week, and we start talking through what's the parameters, what's the fence that we're going to try to put in, how we're going to manage this, and to be able to make sure that we get the pieces in that help our economy and take the pieces out that don't.
All of that has to be negotiated behind the scenes, and at the same time, I would assume you're working pretty closely with President Trump to make sure that he's on board with the proposals you're putting forth.
Sure, yeah, they've got ideas. The White House has ideas. Ways and Means has ideas. The Senate Finance Committee has ideas. So we work those together, and then once we put that out, then other members not in those committees, they also have ideas, and they'll say there's something significant they want to be able to do. Welcome to a very messy republic. We're pretty noisy, and this is how we work things out.
Yeah, I bet the lobbyists are going to be working overtime trying to get their words in on this, too.
Yes, they will.
It's all happening at the same time that the president is carrying out his own negotiation on a global level, talking about tariffs, talking about security issues, talking about things that he'd like to see happen. We're now looking at potentially February 1st for tariffs of 25% on Canada and Mexico, 10% additionally on China. You think that happens, or how do you even prepare for that with the legislation that you're putting forward and all of this? I mean, is that in the back of your mind? You think that's a negotiation? You think that actually happens? Yeah,
it affects the global economy on it. So a couple of things. We want more international trade. That should be a basic benefit. We've been free traders in America since before we were a country. It's one of the arguments in the Declaration of Independence from England is that they were suppressing our trade around the world. So we've been passionate about trade for a long time. When other countries put high tariffs on us to be able to block our products going to them, the president's been pretty clear. We're going to put tariffs on you. We're going to try to bring levels down on this, or we're going to equate to you. But if you want to get access to the American market, you've got to open up your markets as well. President Trump and his team was very active in doing trade agreements. President Biden was, to our great frustration, would not go get new trade agreements. He would tweak existing, but he wouldn't go get new agreements. We need to go get new agreements around the world. And as far as Canada and Mexico, it's pretty clear. The president's said, hey, I want to negotiate. I want to talk about border. I want to talk about fentanyl. I want to talk about the issues that we've got in all these trade agreements, whether it be softwood lumber, whether it be dairy products coming from Canada. Those are big issues to be able to negotiate. And he says, let's actually get them resolved. And in the meantime, I'm going to put a tariff to try to get you to the table to try to get things resolved. I don't think he's looking for tariffs long term, but I think he's looking for things to be right for American companies to be able to trade more.
Is Canada really the problem with fentanyl?
Our issue with fentanyl in Canada is just enforcement there and seeing what's actually coming from the northern border to the south. We're seeing some movement of fentanyl from there as well, much more from Mexico. The primary issue is, quite frankly, China. I think that's why the president put a big piece on China to say if China actually stops sending precursors to Canada and Mexico, we'll have less supply actually coming at us. We got to deal with our desires with the issue of demand in the United States, but also we got to deal with the supply issue at the same time.